Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to chat. I will talk about BSides anytime and anywhere. The fact that I get to do it at one of the largest BSides in the world is very cool. So I'm happy for the opportunity. Interesting. We'll do a little BSides history. 5 years ago today, do you know what BSides was? Nothing. It was not even an idea yet. Not even an idea yet. Want a little context on that? This is event number 122 globally. We have not had events in Asia yet, but we have several scheduled for this year. The folks in Sao Paulo, Brazil do 2 or 3 a year. This has become one of the largest ones annually, and it is a fantastic event. I'm thrilled I get to be here. But 5 years ago right now, people were wondering whether or not Black Hat and DEF CON were going to accept their talks. And that was 5 years ago, is when the security community on Twitter was really starting to congeal. And a bunch of us stayed in touch with each other between going to conferences. And that's how we communicated and expanded the community. It was Twitter's stupid, don't get me wrong. It's horrible, it's stupid, but it's also done some fantastic things in our community. Well, people started whining about their talks being rejected. Well, everybody complains about their talks being rejected. A group of us looked at who got turned down for what and why. And what we realized is a lot of the talks that got turned down should have been turned down. But some of them just weren't quite right for Black Hat, or weren't quite right for DEF CON, or had restrictions that kept people from being able to do them because they wanted to be able to speak very candidly. And so a few of us had this idea, and I don't know how many, there were a few dozen on Twitter that said, like everybody else, when you're excluded from something fun, screw you guys, I'm starting my own club. And what we did was started our own conference. And it was not really that, screw you guys, there's a place for edgier content. There's a place for things that are on the edge of interest, where the audience may be much smaller, but much more engaged. There's a place to have a conversation. And let's try it. The DEF CON 303 crew, Chris Nickerson and that crowd from the Denver area, rent a house every year in Vegas, and they just all rent the house and crash there instead of paying exorbitant hotels. And they said, hey, let's just do it here. And we put a conference together. We probably had 200 people through, 175, 200 people through in 2 days and one evening. Talks included all sorts of folks from Val Smith and H.D. Moore to people you haven't heard of, to a gender issues, women in information security panel, almost 5 years ago. For comparison, RSA made a lot of noise about having a gender issues panel at RSA this year, 4.5 years after the first one in the US, 4 years after the first one at BSides San Francisco. But anyway, we ran this event. It was great. If you didn't like the talk, you went into the next room, which was the kitchen, and grabbed a beer, or went out on the back patio and hit the swimming pool or grabbed a burger, so that when you went into a talk, it was something you were interested in and engaged in. This is kind of cool. And then you had a conversation with somebody talking about H.D. Moore, talking about Warvox, Val Smith talking about psychotic, paranoid political theories, which turn out to be true. All of these things happen, and then what do? It's like, okay, the next speaker gets up. It's like, I really want to see this, but they're recording, so let's go get a beer and talk. And you continue the conversation. You meet people, you have a good connection, and keep going. So at the end of it, the demand was, we've got to do more of these. Now, this is a house that didn't even have air conditioning in the big room. We were getting black garbage bags and duct tape and taping black garbage bags over the window to cut the sun down in Las Vegas in August, right? We freestanding air conditioning units. We almost burned the house down. But it was fantastic because you had conversations as part of a presentation or not. And there were lightning talks. Everybody gathered around the pool table upstairs and played pool and talked about things. There were conversations about PCI over the pool table. There were conversations about social engineering over the pool table. That's kind of an interesting thought, is talking about social engineering over a pool table, which is a sport known for suckering noobs, but that's another story. But it was like, hey, we're on to something. This could work. I wonder if this will scale. I don't know what we do from here. I don't know. Let's try one with RSA. In the meantime, somebody did a very small one. It's like, hey, I kind of like that idea. And they did one in Mountain View, California, and it took off. And they decided they wanted to go a different direction, and it was a launch pad for another event. And that's happened numerous times in the history of BSides too, is that folks have come to us, they've taken the model, which we freely, hey, if you want to do a BSides, we have these ideals. These ideals are the people that give us money so that you can eat, drink, and be here for a very low cost or free, depending on the event. The low cost thing, by the way, if there's not any charge, the no-show rate is unmanageable. It's amazing what having a nominal fee does for both a shoestring budget, economically run place, but also the no-show. And the problem with no-shows is you're buying food. And so it's effectively free, you know. You're getting your money's worth. But these events, the word sponsor is used at all sorts of big events and corporate events, when the word vendor is more appropriate. But at BSides, we want people that are part of the community, that will engage you in a conversation which is not simply, you know, scan you, would you like me to schedule an appointment with an engineer next week? No, people want to have conversations. And so sponsors make it work. People who present make it work. The volunteers and organizers. The magic is that the one in Las Vegas was a handful of us that were going to be there anyway. Now, we weren't local, but we made the event happen. The folks in California and Mountain View were local. They wanted to make it happen. They made it happen. In San Francisco, a local team of people in San Francisco made it that way. Well, the one in Vegas felt like we were in Vegas, not just because it was 1,000 degrees. The one in San Francisco felt like San Francisco because we're in a co-working space in Soma where the taco truck pulled up for lunch one day. You know, it felt like San Francisco. This kind of feels like London. It's pretty sweet. And it's very flexible, but we have these ideas. Sponsors, not vendors. I know that's semantics, but it really means something. We want people to be engaged, everybody to participate, and that's why I think it's really taken off. So we did one in San Francisco, and then there was one in Austin, Texas, and one in Denver, and then the first year came up, first anniversary, and we had another one in Las Vegas. And from there, it's simply accelerated. As I said, I believe this is event number 122. I think by this summer's Las Vegas one, we're going to be close to 135, 137. It doesn't really matter what the score is, though, because there have been, this is the fourth London. There have been ones in Vienna. There have been ones in Algiers, Cape Town, South Africa, Sao Paulo, Gold Coast of Australia, all across the US and Canada. And they all reflect the local community, and they bring people together. A lot of BSides events have created local security communities. The one in Detroit has actually created the Michigan security community, MISEC, which has changed the way people work. It has changed the connectivity of the groups, and that's the magic. It's the power of it. You come in, people ask me all the time about organizing one. I want to organize an event. It's like, cool, how do I measure success? Okay, really simple baseline. You do not measure success by head count. It is cool to have a big event, but you do not measure success by money spent. You measure success by, did you lose money on the event? That's actually not the first one, but as an organizer, did you lose money personally on the event? Generally, we scare people enough that they do it. But the way you tell if the event was a success is, were people happy? You cool leaving? Yeah. Did you see any talks? No. Really? Yeah, but I caught up with this guy I used to work with, and it turns out he's doing this thing and I'm doing this thing. Oh, cool. See any talks? Yep, watch talks all day. It was great because I didn't have to work the booth at whatever vendor con I would normally be trapped at. I saw talks all day. I talked to people. I remember I used to know how to do security stuff. That sounds kind of personal. That's not autobiographical at all. But don't set expectations for, does it work for you? To make you connect with people? Did you reconnect with people? We've launched and accelerated a lot of careers because people connect with people. We would really like to believe that InfoSec is a meritocracy, and our skill set drives us forward, and that's what drives us forward. And I would hope that everybody gets driven forward with their skill set. However, sometimes you need to know who to show your skill set to move forward. Is that a polite way of saying socially engineering your way up the corporate ladder? But that's it. So these are things that BSides really stands for, is making connections, sustaining connections. Another thing that this is one of the events that really does, I think they all do extremely well, is take people and get them more comfortable speaking. The mentorship program, the rookie tracks, are phenomenal because that ability to communicate, even if you don't want to, if you're uncomfortable in audiences, you don't want to be able to just stand up and speak, you're not, the idea of standing up in front of 600 or 800 drunks at DEF CON terrifies you. It should, but the ability to have someone help you polish your content, your delivery, and share an idea with an audience, a manageable sized audience, get constructive feedback, somewhere where people will correct you if you're wrong, but in a conversational way. You know, they'll sit down at the party tonight with a beer and say, you know, you should have gone at it this way. It's fantastic because that skill is something that you need to function, because it turns out that very few organizations have as their core competency being secure. No, they're trying to do something else. They're trying to sell something. They're trying to sell a product, a service, whatever. You have to understand that. You have to make yourself known to people who communicate for a living, and that's what, you know, management and executives do. They have to make decisions, but it's communication. It's also good if you do want to talk in front of 600 or 800 drunks at DEF CON. It's a good launching post, because I don't recommend doing that for your first real talk. But there are, this happens. So this is rolled on and on. So this is where I, fast forward. So anybody's first BSides? Anybody here for the first time? Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you for coming, because some events, I hate going to RSA and they have like the founders circle buttons that you get at RSA and things like that. This is a growing community, and as you grow bad analogies, right? Bad metaphors. As you grow a building, you have to increase the foundation. So those of you who are here for the first time, welcome to the Founders Circle, because you're adding to the foundation of this community. I get all idealistic and shit, don't I? Sorry about that. I have a reputation as being a miserable old bastard, which I deserve, but when I talk about BSides, I sometimes become idealistic. And yeah, so that's it. Where does it go? Let's talk a little bit about what it takes to run these events, so you know the folks that do these. This event has been in planning since before the last event here. Planning really accelerates. It's like every other project in the world. You can do the first 90% of it in the 14 months before the event, and you do the last 90% of it in the month before the event, and then the remaining 90% is done the week of the event, and then you do 90% the night before. If you don't believe that math works, I invite you to join this team in helping run this event next year, and you will understand that that math is more accurate than what you were taught in school. It's like, there can't be this much left to do. And if you want horror stories, sometime if you ever get the chance, listen to Bruce and Heidi Potter talk about what ShmooCon is. They can't have, Bruce had to give up some of his hobby vehicles because the garage, the Volvo 1800, didn't fit in the garage with the truckloads of t-shirts that come into their house. A few of us are that way, but a lot of us have filled hotel rooms, if not garages, with stuff. But we do it because you make connections with folks. You make connections with people, and they become family. Man, I'm gonna get really idealistic. There are people in the BSides community who are closer than my family. Banshee, Genevieve Southwick, who is my business partner in BSides Vegas, she's family. A lot of that team is. A lot of people in this community become very close. And one of the things that does, bringing this back into cynical old bastard mode, one of our challenges in this industry, we were talking about this earlier, there's stuff that you know that will help other people. And so BSides are a fantastic venue for sharing that information. OWASP meetings, your local Linux group, whatever. there's stuff that you know that you can't tell people. And I don't care what your network admin, wherever. There's stuff you know you can't tell people. Not saying break NDAs, but you meet people at BSides and develop these relationships, and you can say, hey, you know, you're at that bank and I'm at this bank, and you know what we're getting beat up with, have you seen it? And we're not really breaking NDAs, but we make those relationships, those trust relationships, which are a lot more reliable than buying trust from VeriSign and their certificate authority, right? You know, and then we go from there. And these events spawn each other, and they're all, I want to stress, you know, they really do run locally. You know, there are a couple of exceptions. Las Vegas is a big exception. None of us live in Las Vegas. Some of these events, back to what's success, people leave happy. BSides Memphis, Tennessee, not a big city, small city, nice place. It's got a serious poverty problem. Very good barbecue, some great music, and a lot of poverty. They have a lot of technology there, but nobody ever gets together. So the first time they did an event, it was 24 people. If you take out the speakers, there were like 15 people that were participants. I want to stress that, not attendees. But of that team, that provided insight and motivation for an event in Jackson, Mississippi, which provided insight and motivation for an event in New Orleans, which the second year in Memphis went all the way up to 40 people, which provided insight and inspiration for BSides in Nashville, Tennessee, and Huntsville, Alabama. So was 24 people in a community college and then 40 people in a community college that amazing? Well, the effect has rippled throughout the higher ed community in the southeastern United States, because now other colleges are getting involved in hosting these things, other communities, other professionals. What happens here, we pull people into this venue, and then you go back out and you get to be really candid and not have to wear a suit and tie like you do down the road. And so that participation is key. And so I like to borrow one of your heroes for trying to be inspirational. And I'll wrap this up, we'll break early. I like to talk about that physics dude, you know, the one that changed the view of the world. He's on your money, right? What's the quote? Standing on the shoulders of giants. Isaac Newton, right? An aside, Isaac Newton changed the way we view the world forever, right? And there are people like in CERN in Switzerland with the big donut thing that are shooting atoms back and forth, and they're trying to disprove Newtonian physics. And there is nobody on the planet that wants Newton to be right more than they are. And I'll tell you why. I don't want to stand next to that fucking tube if Newton was wrong about these bolts holding together, right? Think about that for a minute. We're going to disprove, yeah? Well, I'm going to back up a little bit. But so a couple of things that Newton said are fantastic for talking about BSides. One, which he borrowed from someone else, is that if I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. That's cliche. Right? I want you to stop and think about what that means in the context of this community. That means that you have the opportunity here to find those shoulders. By giants, I don't mean giant egos, but people who can give you a foundation. You also have the opportunity to provide shoulders to others. Take that seriously. Take what you're given, build on it, learn from others, and then pass that forward. Provide shoulders to others. And remember that you are always standing on the shoulders of giants. Everything we do is based on somebody else. Prior history, especially in computer security. You know, you start rolling back to Grace Hopper and Lady Ada and folks like that. It's like, oh yeah. People that did computing by patch cable because they didn't have switches, right? We're all standing on somebody else's shoulders. BSides gives us an opportunity to both stand on shoulders and provide shoulders for others. And remember that you're standing on shoulders. Wear soft-soled shoes because you are standing on the shoulders of others. Use Google and give people credit. And the other one that I think is really interesting at BSides, where there are a lot of different things happening. forgive me, I don't remember the full quote, but Newton was asked about his accomplishments late in life, and he said, "I don't know what I may seem to others, but to myself I seem as a small boy on the beach, only pausing to look at a pebble or shell which was shinier or more interesting than the others." That was Newton's take on his own life. Changed the way we view the world. But the passion of that shell or that pebble, which distracted Newton, was what drove him where he is. This is the kind of event and community where you can find that pebble, you can find that shell, no matter how strange or esoteric it may be to the rest of the world, no matter how much your family rolls their eyes when you try to talk about the cool stuff you learned today. This is an opportunity to find that shell, find that pebble, and participate and share. And that's all I got. I'm getting all idealistic and crap now. So I need to say thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. It's fantastic to be at BSides London again this year. It's a fantastic event. It's far from over, so take a look at what's coming up this afternoon. There's a break coming up next. And with that, thank you very much.